Beamy Evan, 27, junior product engineer, new salary, old anxiety, early career, late nights, trying to look calm while learning everything. Rent is paid on time, ambitions are not, so I chase both. Married young to Blair, 28, people team partner with a loud mission. Her friends call her driven. My friends call her intense. I call her my wife. Love started simple, shared takeout, dumb jokes, and hands always finding hands. Stability felt fragile, so we built routines and pretended they were permanent. Monday morning arrives with her laptop already open at breakfast. Slides glow on the screen. Headline says, "Emotional discipline for high performers." She tells me her mentor says intimacy is a dopamine trap for average people. She says, we can't be average, not now, not while building careers from scratch. My fork pauses midair because I thought marriage was not a productivity app. Blair speaks like she's reading a policy, calm, assured, almost proud. She claims physical closeness clouds judgment and makes men dependent on reassurance. Tuesday night she schedules a relationship reset like it's a sprint review. Calendar invite shows 90 days. Title says, "No intimacy, clear focus." Her explanation stays clean. No yelling, no tears, just cold certainty. She calls it a boundary, a detox, a way to reclaim our future. My throat tightens because future sounds like a threat when love gets regulated. I ask if I did something wrong, and she says wrong is a toxic binary. She says this is about growth and breaking patterns, not blaming anyone. Wednesday. I try negotiating like an adult because adults talk, right? Compromise gets offered, less touch, more space, scheduled date nights, whatever helps. Blair rejects compromise instantly, saying negotiation is how men erode boundaries. She says any pushback proves I'm addicted to access and control. Hearing that makes my skin go cold because it's a trap with vocabulary. Argue and I become unsafe. Agree and I become lonely, neat choices. I swallow pride and say, okay, because conflict costs more than silence. Thursday becomes the first day of the new rules in our home. Kitchen feels the same, yet everything about it feels inspected. Hugs become check-ins. Kisses become requests. Requests become polite denials. Blair starts ending every sentence with, "Thank you for respecting my boundary." That line hits like a stamp on my forehead every time she says it. I sleep on my side, facing away, because facing her feels like begging. Sunrise brings her cheerful energy like she just won a healthy debate. Friday she texts me links while I'm at work, like she's sharing weather. Videos talk about male entitlement, about partners using affection as leverage. Comment sections cheer women for decoupling from emotional labor. I close the links without replying, then feel guilty for not engaging. Lunch break turns into me staring at a wall, thinking about my own bed. Evening arrives and she asks how my day was. Professional tone, no warmth. I answer with facts because facts are safe when feelings become evidence. Saturday morning she goes to brunch with co-workers from her department. Group selfies hit the feed. Everyone's smiling like the future is a brand. Blair comes home with a tote bag, a book, and more certainty. She says one co-worker praised her for not centering a man's needs. That sentence lands hard because I'm her husband, not a random demand. I try joking, saying I didn't realize I was a needs category. She doesn't laugh, and the silence makes the joke die in my mouth. Sunday, my body finally realizes the rules are real and stops waiting. Sleep gets worse, appetite gets weird, chest stays tight for no reason. Work becomes easier, which is the most depressing part. Deadlines feel cleaner than my own living room. Blair seems energized, like discipline is giving her a new spine. She starts waking early to journal, then runs a meeting in her head. I start waking early too, just to avoid feeling rejected at night. Week 2 begins, and she adds a new layer called emotional clarity. She asks me not to flood her with affection requests after meetings. She wants quiet evenings to recover from people's energy. That would be fair if my love wasn't being treated as noise. I offer to cook dinner and watch a movie. No touching, no pressure. Blair nods, then spends the film answering messages with bright, excited thumbs. Seeing her excited for strangers while I sit still feels like a joke. Midweek, I notice a pattern in her phone habits. Notifications arrive. She smiles. She angles the screen away, then replies fast. My brain says, don't be that guy. Trust your partner. Be secure. My gut says something is feeding her that our marriage isn't allowed to feed. Night comes and she reminds me that detox is working because she feels lighter. I ask if she feels closer to me, and she says closeness isn't the goal. Hearing that makes me realize I'm living with a mission, not a partner. Week 3 hits, and I stop asking for anything, because asking is punishment. Coffee gets made, bills get split, chores get done, words stay minimal. Blair calls it mature. I call it quiet. Quitting with vows. She starts going out twice a week for networking dinners. Her outfit choices change, not flashy, just sharp, like she's auditioning. When she returns, she's energized, then suddenly tired when I speak. I start working out after work, not for revenge, for survival. Thursday night she mentions a new senior leader who gets it. She says he respects ambitious women and hates clingy relationship dynamics. That sentence might be casual, yet it feels like a door opening elsewhere. I ask who he is, and she says names don't matter. The concept matters. Concepts again. Always concepts. Never accountability. Never simple truth. My mind starts cataloging every time she called me a pattern. In bed, she faces away like me now, except her sleep looks peaceful. Friday, I find the first breadcrumb by accident. Her laptop is open on the kitchen table, screen asleep, chat icon still glowing. Finger taps the trackpad, window wakes, message thread sits right there. Header shows Adrian, no last name, and a heart emoji next to it. My stomach drops like it heard bad news before my brain could translate. I should close it. I should walk away. I should respect privacy. Instead, I scroll 1 inch, because respect already left our bedroom. Saturday morning, I read enough to ruin my appetite. Messages are flirty, not explicit, just warm, playful, hungry for attention. Blair writes that she's finally choosing herself and detoxing needy energy at home. Adrian replies that he admires her discipline and wishes more women had her standards. She sends laughing reactions, then calls him a rare man who understands. My hands shake because I'm the man she married, and I'm not rare to her. I take screenshots, then hate myself for taking them, then keep taking them anyway. Sunday, I confront her carefully because anger would become evidence against me. Kitchen chair pulls out. Receipts open on my phone like a case file. Blair sees the screen and her face changes. Anger first, then calculation. She says I violated trust by reading her messages. I say she violated marriage by cultivating intimacy outside the house. She calls it harmless connection and says I'm proving why detox was needed. She says men police women's autonomy when women build supportive networks. I ask why her supportive network needs heart emojis and late-night compliments. Monday she goes into HR mode defense, crisp phrases, no accountability. She claims it's emotional labor to reassure my insecurity. She says my jealousy is a patriarchal reflex, not a reasonable response. I ask whether she would accept me texting a coworker hearts and "you understand me." Blair says the comparison is invalid because men and women have different power contexts. That answer is not an argument. It's a shield that blocks any mirror. Something in me goes quiet, the kind of quiet that becomes permanent. Tuesday, I decide to follow her rules perfectly, because rules are her religion. Intimacy stops completely, but now it's not her boundary. It's mine too. Affection disappears, not punished, just absent, like a light switched off. Conversation becomes strictly logistical. No chasing, no reassurance, no warmth. Blair notices fast, because she notices absence like a manager notices downtime. She asks if I'm okay, and I say I'm respecting the detox framework. Her eyes narrow, because frameworks feel good only when you control them. Wednesday, she tries baiting a reaction with little tests. She wears perfume at dinner and leans close while pouring water. I step back politely like she's a stranger in an elevator. She touches my arm while laughing at a video, then freezes when I don't respond. I thank her for the meal and start washing dishes immediately. Blair asks if I'm punishing her, and I say boundaries aren't punishment. That line is hers, and hearing it from me makes her jaw tighten. Thursday, she schedules a check-in and sets 2 chairs facing each other. She says, my emotional withdrawal feels manipulative and unsafe. I ask what she expected after labeling my love as addiction. Blair says I'm twisting her words and weaponizing therapy language. I remind her she called me dependent and framed sex as a dopamine trap. She says those were growth concepts and concepts shouldn't be taken personally. I reply that marriage is personal by definition, unless she rewrote that too. Friday, she starts slipping because control hates losing control. She asks for a hug as friends, and I say friends respect distance. She asks to watch a show together, and I say I have work. Late at night, she says she misses the old us, and I say the old us was unproductive. Hearing that makes her flinch like she got slapped with her own ideology. Her phone lights up, Adrian message appears, and she hides it too quickly. I don't mention it because mentioning it gives her a new debate to win. Week 4 becomes a cold experiment inside a warm apartment. I get promoted at work, small bump, small praise, enough to distract me. Blair gets praise too, but now she looks home for validation she banned. She starts making dinner again, setting candles, trying to stage a reset. I eat politely, compliment the food, then return to my laptop. She asks if Adrian bothers me, pretending it's a joke, eyes sharp. I answer that I don't track her networks because tracking is controlling. Sunday she breaks character and cries, real tears, no vocabulary armor. She says she feels lonely and invisible in her own home. I almost reach out, then remember week 1, her calm face, her rule book. Instead I say loneliness is part of detox and discomfort means growth. Blair stares like she can't believe the monster speaks in her voice. She storms to the bedroom and slams the door, then locks it. Lock clicks, and I realize she never cared about intimacy, only control of it. Week 5 brings her newest idea, a home policy called emotion budgeting. She prints a sheet and tapes it on the fridge like it's a chore chart. Budget lists allowable topics, career goals, health, logistics, and supportive affirmations. Forbidden section includes jealousy, neediness, and anything she calls attachment spirals. I stare at the paper and ask if my marriage just got a compliance poster. Blair says structure reduces conflict and conflict kills momentum. Her voice stays gentle, yet the rule feels like a hand around my throat. Tuesday evening, she runs our first weekly review over dinner. Questions come fast. Did I respect boundaries? Did I avoid guilt tactics? Did I center her comfort? She writes notes in a small notebook, then asks me to sign the page. My mouth goes dry because signing means consent, and consent becomes a weapon later. I refuse politely, and she says refusal is a sign of low accountability. That is when I realize she isn't protecting herself from me. Control is the product, and I am the subscription. Wednesday, she asks me to post a couple's photo online with a caption about growth. She wants a public narrative because narratives protect reputations. I suggest we keep private things private, and her smile hardens. Blair says privacy breeds shame, and shame is patriarchy. Hearing that makes me want to scream, yet screaming would be proof of instability. So I nod and say I'll think about it, because thinking buys time. Later she posts alone anyway, vague lines about choosing peace over demands. Thursday, my co-workers invite me out for drinks after a release milestone. I almost decline, then remember the apartment feels like a silent courtroom. One co-worker, Claire, 26, pings me later, offering a walk at lunch. No pressure. Claire mentions her sister went through a self-help boundary phase, and it got ugly. Claire says boundaries are healthy until they become a way to punish connection. That sentence lands like someone naming the monster without giving it power. I don't spill everything, yet I admit home feels like a contract. She tells me to keep everything in writing and not get isolated. Weekend arrives and Blair invites me to her ambition circle on video chat. She says it will help me understand her mindset and stop resisting. Call opens with 4 women and 1 guy, all smiling like they're selling something. Everyone shares wins, promotions, networking, cutting distractions, optimizing routines. Blair describes me as her biggest distraction challenge, then laughs. Group laughs too, and I sit there feeling reduced to a problem. One woman says partners often sabotage women subconsciously. Another suggests enforcing consequences so men learn new patterns. Sunday night, Blair asks if I learned something. I tell her I learned that strangers shouldn't vote on my marriage. She says I'm being dramatic and says my defensiveness proves the circle was needed. Then she adds a new rule: no touching, and no longing looks either. Apparently, longing looks create pressure, which is a form of coercion in her theory. My brain short-circuits because now even silence can be interpreted as violence. I go to bed early, not tired, just trying to disappear safely. Through the wall, I hear her laughing on a voice call, bright and alive. Monday, I start carrying a small notebook like a paranoid accountant. Dates get written, quotes get captured, rule changes get logged. It feels insane, yet insanity is living unrecorded in a story someone else writes. Blair notices the notebook and asks what it is. I tell her it's my productivity journal because productivity language keeps her calm. She approves, smiling, saying reflection is growth. My stomach twists because my survival looks like compliance to her. Tuesday, she tries turning my cold behavior into a public shame lesson. She messages our mutual friends about how I'm struggling with empathy. One friend texts me, asking if everything is okay. Careful tone. Worried. That message proves she's building a narrative in advance. I reply to the friend that it's private, and I'm handling it. Then I screenshot Blair's message trail where she frames me as a project. Receipts keep stacking because manipulators always leave a paper trail when they feel righteous. Wednesday, she confronts me about my distance again. Blair says the detox was her boundary, not a weapon I can use on her. I answer that boundaries apply to both sides or they're not boundaries. She says I'm weaponizing her self-work and punishing her for being ambitious. I ask how flirting fits ambition, and her face flashes anger. She says the chats were harmless mentorship, and mentorship requires warmth. That warmth word makes my chest ache because warmth is what she banned at home. Thursday, she proposes a new idea, opening the marriage emotionally but not physically. She claims emotional exclusivity is possessive and outdated. I ask if she wants permission to keep Adrian without consequences. Blair says my framing is hostile, and that hostility is why women fear men. That accusation is serious, and I feel the ground shift under my feet. Threat is now on the table, the kind that can ruin jobs, not just nights. I go silent and let her talk, because talkers reveal intentions when you don't interrupt. She says if I keep resisting, she might need to seek support through formal channels. Friday, I ask her to put that in writing because writing is real. Blair refuses, saying requests for documentation are intimidation tactics. I smile politely and say I need clarity to improve. She rolls her eyes and says, "Men love receipts because they fear accountability." Hearing that while I'm being threatened makes my hands go numb. After she falls asleep, I email myself a summary of the conversation with timestamps. My sent folder becomes my armor, because armor beats vibes. Monday, I meet with a lawyer quietly, not for revenge, for clarity. Consultation stays simple, assets small, timelines clear, no kids, thank God. Advice says document everything, stay calm, keep records, avoid escalation. I nod, because calm is my new personality anyway. On the way home, I buy a plain folder and a cheap label maker. That purchase feels surreal, like I'm buying the end in office supplies. At dinner, Blair chats about culture work, like nothing happened. Tuesday, she announces a final phase of her program. She says we should reintroduce intimacy slowly, on a schedule, with consent checklists. My stomach turns because she wants a controlled return now that I stopped chasing. I tell her I'm not interested in restarting anything under that model. Blair laughs once, nervous, then asks if I'm cheating. I say I'm working, sleeping, and learning who I am without begging. Silence lands heavy because she hears her own lesson and hates it. Wednesday, she demands my phone to restore trust through transparency. I refuse and say transparency is voluntary, not audited. Blair calls me secretive and says secrecy is a red flag for men. I ask if she offered Adrian her phone access too. She says Adrian is not relevant, and I'm obsessing. My reply stays calm, because calm keeps my plan invisible. Night arrives, and she sleeps on the couch like a protest. Thursday, I catch another message thread by accident on her watch display. Text preview says, "Miss you." Then, "Wish he understood you like I do." My chest tightens, then loosens, because the remaining doubt finally dies. I don't confront her this time, because confrontation feeds drama, and drama feeds her. Instead, I draft 2 emails at work, one to my manager, one to myself. First email requests a week off for personal reasons. No details, just dates. Second email stores every screenshot in a private archive, because receipts are oxygen. Friday, I pack quietly while she's at networking dinner. Suitcase fills with basics, documents, and the stuff that matters to my sanity. Folder gets placed on the table, labeled Reset Plan and Exit Timeline. Inside sits a clean list of bill splits and lease transfer steps. Nothing dramatic, no accusations, just logistics, the language she trained me to speak. I add one note, printed, not handwritten, because handwriting looks emotional. Note says, "I completed the detox and found peace in distance." Saturday morning, she walks in humming, then stops when she sees the luggage. Blair asks what this is, voice tight, trying to sound in control. I tell her I'm choosing emotional discipline, and that discipline means leaving instability. She laughs like it's a prank, then notices the screenshots on top of the folder. Color drains from her face in real time. She says it's not what it looks like. Classic line. Classic timing. I say it looks exactly like it is, and I'm done debating definitions. Sunday, she tries every lever: anger, tears, promises, ideology, then love. She says she didn't cheat physically, so it isn't cheating. I answer that intimacy isn't only physical, it's attention, warmth, secrecy, and choice. She calls me unforgiving and says forgiveness is a feminist value. I tell her values don't erase actions, they just decorate them. Blair asks if we can restart, her voice small, no buzzwords left. I say she already restarted with someone else, and I'm not a backup plan. Monday, I move into a small place with blank walls and quiet air. Silence feels strange, then addictive, then finally safe. Blair sends long messages about growth and misunderstanding. I respond once, short, asking all communication stay in writing and logistical. She calls me cold, and I almost laugh because cold was her goal. Work becomes my anchor. Gym becomes my therapy. Sleep becomes my reward. Weeks pass, and the tightness in my chest finally lets go. 2 months later, a mutual friend mentions Blair got fired quietly. Apparently, her ethical boundaries didn't include flirting with a senior leader. Her department found the messages after Adrian got caught doing the same thing elsewhere. She calls it misogyny. He calls it misunderstanding. The company calls it policy. I hear the story and feel nothing but tired relief. My final lesson stays sharp because it cost me my home to learn it. When someone turns love into a metric, they will eventually grade you out of their life,